What's happening, guys? Thank you for tuning back into the Built on Blue Collar podcast. This is another early episode of our relaunch. We have two other episodes before this one with Manuel and also Brian in the new studio. So we're trying to launch or relaunch the podcast, and we appreciate you guys listening. I know we've gotten a few requests to kick it back off from some buddies and also some messages on Instagram. So that was kind of cool. But we appreciate you guys turning on the podcast and listening back into us. Today, I have a good friend of mine on the podcast, Tyler. He is not technically in the blue-collar field, but I'm sure he works with a lot of guys that are in the blue-collar field, and we're going to talk mainly about his experience, his military experience, his current job and what he does, and then money and world economic, political warfare environment as well, and just kind of dive into a bunch of different topics, everything that we can cover within the time, and just kind of BS a little bit and see how we can incorporate what he does in the financial sector with construction, and possibly some questions that I have on how construction companies can kind of incorporate some strategies into their business that Tyler's uses on a daily basis. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive right in. Tyler, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, dude. We'll just kind of kick it off. And Tyler and I met originally, I think, 7 or 8 months ago. Mm-hmm. We did a workout at the CQB facility in Van Alstyne, and then we just got kicked off and started working with Checkmate, or at least I started working with Checkmate with you and the other two guys. And then from there, we've grown a little bit, and we've grown connections. We've grown a lot of folks on the Checkmate training group side. And so that's kind of what you and I work on. But dive into a little bit about Checkmate on that side and the tactical side, and then we'll dive into what you do on the insurance and financial area.
Cool. Yeah, man, it was super cool meeting you in that way because a big part about the business is making sure that it always stays in the path of relationships, community. And so the way we met is really cool because you came out to a workout event. It was a free event just to kind of find people in the area that were looking for something, a way to develop themselves, a way to protect their family. And you showed up. I was like, this guy's cool. And then you showed up at every workout. And then now we work together on a lot of stuff. So really cool. So Checkmate launched last year. There was an Allen Outlet mall shooting, and we saw that law enforcement was on scene. They reacted very well. It was honestly, that body cam footage shows so well of kind of what law enforcement can go through. He was speaking with a family about the importance of wearing seatbelts in like a friendly manner, and then you hear shots, and he's getting his rifle and he's running. And so big shout out to law enforcement. I have a military background. We kind of knew, I guess, like the funnel of what we expected was a lot smaller list of things that could happen versus law enforcement. You can get a call for someone fell out of their bed, someone's on drugs, you've already arrested them 20 times, noise complaints, and then it can be something very catastrophic like a child choking or active shooter. And so to be able to go through all that and get up every day and put on a badge, I mean, shout out to that for sure. But what we picked up from that scenario was there's a lot of armed people that were in the back of stores. And so it showed, they weren't going to fight that day, which is okay. Maybe it was lack of training, maybe it was lack of confidence, maybe they had their family with them and they had other priorities, whatever it is. We just saw kind of a leak in the planning, a leak in the ability to kind of process the situation and take action, whether you're deciding to engage the threat or evade. And so that's when me and my two partners, we came together and we're like, hey, we need to educate the public on the critical thinking that has to occur when there is a shooting. And so what can that apply to? It can apply to schools. We can help, law enforcement, whoever's school security, take extra steps to prevent that from happening in schools, just like they do with fire drills. Everyday Americans, they want to be put in scenarios in a training environment to process it. I think every man wants to know, hey, if I'm in a situation, is it fight or flight for me?
Yeah.
And it might be flight because you lack the tools to allow you to fight. And so we just wanted to be another resource for people to take the right steps in that situation. So that's why it launched. We wanted to be able to provide the critical thinking skills to increase your odds of surviving and protecting.
Yeah.
And so where that's gone and where we've kept it really is providing the value before the dollar amount, right? We believe that cash flow is the result of serving. And so if we want to do something big, we have to go find like-minded individuals that believe in the vision and kind of want to lock shields. I stole that from you.
Yeah.
Locking shields, forming an alliance.
Shout out to Michael Bowman for that one.
Nice. Thanks, Michael Bowman. But yeah, so that was kind of why we launched, and it's been interesting to see what directions it's started to grow. So now I believe it's a lot bigger with community outreach. We're seeing a lot of men that are looking for other groups of like-minded men that can help lift each other up. I know that's why we became so close so quickly you're one of the guys I can just call right up. If I need anything, I know you got me. And we want that to be a more spread out resource, across our area. And, if it goes global, that's awesome.
That's the goal, man. I thought that was really cool because I know at least where I was in business, and with Eagle Eye, we've got a lot of like-minded values that Checkmate already had established in their business. And so when we when we first met and we started talking about that stuff, it kind of connected real fast. And we've linked shields in that aspect and been working together ever since and from here on out. But it's been cool, especially a key portion in our business is community, and that's kind of what we're doing at Checkmate too, is building up that community. I think there's a lot of negative community, right? There's whether it's in the gun or tactical space, a lot of people eat their own in that industry. Same thing with construction. Everybody wants to tell everybody why it's wrong, why you're doing it wrong online. They're watching videos and just critiquing it without having all the information, and they start to degrade and kind of cancer that whole community aspect. I think Checkmate and Eagle Eye, both on completely different sectors, are trying to establish hey, we need to get rid of that mentality. We need to bond together, build each other up rather than start tearing each other down. Ask more questions and listen more than just start critiquing. But I think that's one of the reasons why we connected real close. Just that whole aspect of lifting each other up and getting other like-minded men to sharpen each other's iron and be better than what the mundane mentality of the world is right now. So super cool. Take us into your military background. I know we talked a little bit about it upstairs and kind of diving in go from right before you went into the military and then why you chose the military and how you got in and what the path was that you took.
Okay, cool. So I'm a talker, so
yeah,
I'll try to compress. But
that's what we want. Don't compress.
I guess that's why I'm here. I guess that's why I have a microphone, right?
That's right, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
I came in the right room. So for me, military, kind of before I would hope most people make a decision, they kind of usually tend to see compounding signs that they should probably make that decision. And so for me, there's a guy I went to school with, Kevin Hobbs. What's up, Kevin? He always spoke so highly of the Marine Corps. This guy's a patriot, and I always appreciated him speaking so highly of him. So that was kind of something I knew from how proud he was of our military and the Marine Corps. He spoke very highly of it. And growing up, everyone's you got to get good grades so you can go to college, so you can get a good job, so you can make good money and hopefully promote through that and get a good retirement. And I was always that's interesting. They're sending 18-year-olds to college to decide their career path when most 18-year-olds I know aren't ready to make that kind of
they have no idea
decision. And I feel there's a big gap in the guidance from, high school mindset, curriculum structure, you're still with your parents, all these things, to you go out to college now, go into all this debt, and then get a job. You have the paper that says you can do it, but the job wants the
experience or skill.
The experience, thank you, before you can have it.
Yeah.
So it kind of is this interesting spot where there's a lot of people that get to decide my future. And so I kind of always had a weird issue with that. And so I was like, I don't feel great about the school system. I'm here all day. I feel like I can, kind of be halfway in this and still pass. It was just interesting. And so I was like, well, at least college, I'm like trying to like sell myself on college now because I didn't really like that version. So I'm like, well, how can I sell myself on going to college? It's like, well, at least I'll take the classes I want to take. And so I went to college, and the classes I wanted to take, they're like, oh, you need prerequisites for that. You have to take this class, this class, this class first, and then you can take that class your junior year. And I'm like, if I want to be proficient in these now, can't I just take these for 4 years?
Like an arts class or something stupid that's like, oh, you've got to take this.
Yeah, so I'm like, this just still feels like high school, but I'm going to pay you tens of thousands of dollars annually, and I can't even take what I want to take. So that was kind of my last straw. I was like, I'm going to go figure something out on my own. So I went out to the oil fields with my boy Zach. We're just going to go make some serious cash.
Hey, so you do have some blue collar experience.
A little bit. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we went out to Odessa, Midland area. We were fed up. So we're like, let's just go. So I had $72 and a car, a truck. Zach had a couple $100. And in our mind, like, there's just jobs and money everywhere out there. So we're like, let's just go. So we go, we're applying, living in my truck. We lived in my truck for like 3 weeks.
Nice.
We were taking like Craigslist jobs to pay for meals, and find out a old family friend of mine had family out there. So we ended up in a trailer after about a month, but living in the truck, kicking the can on the highway. Like, what are we doing out here? We can't go back home as losers. Like, we have to figure it out. And that was so good for me as a man, just like developing myself and being like, this is kind of hard, but I'm figuring it out myself.
You were 18 or 19 or?
Yeah. I was, 18 or 19. And so we get jobs. We're working, I worked a 96-hour shift starting Christmas morning, or no, 36-hour shift starting Christmas morning, which was crazy. I was like hallucinating and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But it was good money and it was good work. And about a year after that, we came back home, and I was like, I liked what that did for me. I developed who I am. I learned about myself. What can do that for me next? And so that's when I started doing electrical wiring and gas line work for a couple buildings going up. And that was good money too. I mean, I did enjoy that, but I just was like, I need to work on myself because I don't know what I'm made of. So there's always this thing with me where I'm like, I have to figure out what I'm made of. And so I was like, well, where can I get more of what I felt in the oil field? I can go join the military. And then I was like, oh, and they might, like, originally I was thinking that was part of my sell maybe before I left for the oil field, is like, maybe I'll do the military, like reserves or something, and they'll pay for college, because I was still convincing myself maybe college.
Yeah.
And so now I'm almost come back to the idea of military as like, maybe I should go full force in the military and allow that to develop me as well. So then I was like, Kevin always said Marines were the way to go if you're going to go all in. So yeah, I went all in Marine infantry, went to boot camp, September 2015. And that's when I went in, and I served 5 years, got out as a sergeant of the Marine Corps. I got to serve with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1-4 as well. And I was grateful for that experience because I got to see 2 different chain of commands within the infantry and how they operate, how they differ. And so I think that was great for my perspective in the military. A lot of people do one unit, and they have that one perspective the whole time of what the Marine Corps is, but it's very diverse. So that was pretty cool to experience.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that you kept switching, in the blue collar field a little bit around before you hit the military. So that's neat. And then so was there a reason? I know is it typically 4 years or 5-year contract in the military?
Normally 4 in the Marine Corps, unless it's like a specified job.
Sweet.
I did an extension.
Gotcha. Okay.
When I was at about my 3-year mark, our son was on the way, and shout out to my wife, Violetta. We met we met my wife on a Navy battleship. She's a Marine also. Total badass.
She is.
Awesome. Our son. Well, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Our son has warrior blood, Russian, German, Irish.
There you go.
He's awesome. But yeah, so I had started to see people getting out of the military that were my seniors. Some were doing fine. A few were doing well, and then most were kind of lost. And so now being responsible for not only myself, I have a wife and a baby. I'm like, I need to be on my stuff when I get out. And so I ended up moving units because I didn't have enough time with that, with 3-5 to deploy a second time. And at the time, I didn't know if I was going to stay in or not. And after changing units, we moved into a home together, my wife and I, in California. And I was just like, I should probably extend and really make sure I have a plan to exit properly. And so I extended. So I got out at 5 years. What I did is about a year before I left, I made sure to get checked out for all my medical issues so that I could have proof of those issues. I know I've heard a lot of horror stories of people getting out with some serious stuff and no longer having support from it. So I got on top of my medical work, and then I also started calling friends back home. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing that you enjoy? And most of them didn't like what they were doing.
Yeah.
Or were kind of like running a job for a little bit, changing it. So they were kind of lost.
Yeah.
And so there was one friend of mine I spoke with, David, and he was making 6 figures in gym sales, but he was working like 6 days a week. And he's like, I just left it, man. I was making good money, but
it's
kinda,
killing me.
It owned all his time.
Yeah.
And so I was really proud of him, and that was a bold move to leave it, because a lot of people, whatever they'll get bought out at a certain dollar amount sometimes, and they'll be like, yeah, I might hate it, but I'm getting money. It's like, oh, like kind of missing it. But so yeah, when he said he quit, even though he was making the money, I was like, cool. So where'd you go? And so he got into roofing sales, and he's doing very well. He almost made $250,000 first year.
That's awesome.
And I was like, hey, set me up, man. I need to provide for my family. That's step one. And then once I get settled in, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got out of the militaries mainly just because the family was getting started, and you were like, okay, I got to really hone in on this and provide. Or was there an aspect of like the culture? Like, I don't know if I want to resign because of the culture.
So,
or a little bit of both.
That's a good question. So for me, there's a lot that I loved, and there's a lot that I could see. When you commit to a career path in the military, you're committing to a career path where you're filtered on how much you can be yourself, because you have to serve the country first. And in serving the country, there are some leaders that stay because that's all they can do. They don't have an option. They're not going to get out and go excel and be something great. Sadly, some people just aren't. And so there's some phenomenal leaders. I got to meet a handful of really great guys, and I met a few that aren't, but they still end up making it through the ranks.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just one of those things where I can't have people putting limits on my capacity, because I'm still trying to break through it. And if you try to stop me from breaking through it, then it doesn't serve me or you. Because if I have a guy that I'm blocking his capacity, I need him to go somewhere else that can help develop that. And so I would never want to do that to someone else. I can't allow that to be done to me. And I just felt that was kind of the end of the road for me in the military, and grateful for it. I think it gave me a lot of important, it helped improve my character, my mindset. Really grateful for it, but it was just the end of the road for me. It was also weird. It was during COVID time when I was getting out. I had already decided I was getting out, but that really helped me
solidify it.
Yeah. I mean, formations where people were
Distance.
6 feet apart, wearing masks outside, and I was like, the military's like rough and tough. I don't really understand what's going on. It just didn't really click for me.
It was all propaganda, really. I mean, it just a show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've got to listen.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know. I have an interesting thing where, like, it's one thing to respect and follow a leader. It's another thing if there is, I've never liked the term, like, I'm just obeying orders.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're deleting your whole part in what's going on in the scenario. And so it kind of looked like, okay, there's a lot of order followers here. You're supposed to follow orders.
Yeah.
But there's more. It's more than that. And so
100%.
I was kind of seeing that. I was like, yeah, I'm glad I'm getting out.
I find something that's interesting is when the military started pushing the COVID policies and obviously the shot and stuff like that, the ones that you could tell were not leaders or leadership driven were the ones that stayed in, and the ones that were more leadership driven are the ones that are like, hey, all right, kick me out, whatever. Like, I'm not doing this. And then you look at their life right now, and they're doing amazing things. It's really cool to see, folks that have exited or been pushed out that are now doing some pretty awesome things. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you there. As far as, yeah, there's a part of me, I agree with you there. I do know a couple really strong guys that stayed back.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too? There were guys on deployment when they started pushing the vaccine. They weren't allowed off the boat without the vaccine. So like,
really,
they really did strong arm a lot of guys, even though they did have that independent, like leadership, free thinking mindset of like,
oh yeah,
this is some BS. They got, they kind of punked some people.
Yeah.
They did.
Corporate America did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You want to keep your job. You want to do this. You want to do that. You want to travel. You want to do that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that were like, oh, well, I still want to travel overseas this year. And I'm like, dude, this is going to be over in a couple of years. Like, all you got to do is hold out. And they were like, I really want to travel, so I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to take it. They didn't believe in it. They weren't, they were very health conscious, but they did it anyway.
I've had some passionate conversations with that kind of scenario as well. It's like, zoom out.
Yeah.
Zoom out of this. You're looking literally one step in front of you.
Yeah.
And you don't like that something's in your way right now, so you're going to conform to it.
Short-term, long-term gratification.
Yeah.
Just the difference. But that's cool. Yeah. I think that's kind of a cool background on at least like the blue collar side, kind of moving in, kind of searching, right, that self-betterment, going to the military. And then I think God's blessed a lot of the decisions therefore after that moment, because we're doing some pretty fun and awesome stuff.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's awesome. What were some top lessons that you learned in the military through that experience? Like, you went in there with the thought, hey, I need to, find out a little bit about who I am and, grow a little bit. Well, what are some of the main lessons that you learned?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I learned a lot of main lessons. Discipline was huge. I have a little bit of a rebellious side, so discipline can be an interesting. There has to be the right leader to get me to listen and develop. So I'm really grateful for, like, my first squad leader was Lance Corporal Shoot at the time. Super grateful for him. He knew how to communicate with me, so that was really cool. I like to challenge, so like, challenge me. I think that's a huge thing that can happen. Is sometimes over time in the military, like, you see the unit that's been out of combat the longest will be the furthest away from combat ready. It makes sense, right? Because they don't have people that experienced it still there, sharing the experience, sharing the training, implementing, so they lose sense of why they're training that way, and then there's room for like these adjustments that are kind of veering a different direction. But yeah, so I was grateful to just have really humble leaders that were patient with me and learned how, because like, there's a lot of people that know a lot of facts and they'll blurt them out, but if the person you're speaking with can't pick it up, you're not, like, you might know a thing or two, you might take a test well, but you're not actually building other leaders. It's not getting received. So I was grateful for that. So discipline, grit. It was cool. Like, it's cool being with a bunch of guys that were told they're getting trucked home 7 days ago. Trucks aren't here yet. And you're just sleeping out in the cold. Like, everyone's just fired up because there was coffee in the morning. Just like, like, we're fired up for smoke breaks or like
caffeine.
Like, it's like belligerent stuff. Like, oh, run it again. Like 5 runs after you were supposed to be done. They're like, oh yeah, run it again. You're like, that's crazy. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so kind of some grit with those guys. For me, I think that, so I was in an infantry battalion, but didn't see combat. And I think a lot of the guys that go, they think they're going to see combat. They're trained that they're going to see combat. They're going to basically face that test of, am I about it?
Yeah. That trauma.
Yeah. And so I think as men preparing to be in that space for 4 years, 5 years with your brothers you'd be willing to die for, and then you don't go, I think that can be really hard for some guys to let it go.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I have to know how I would do. I got to know.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think everyone that was Marine infantry struggles with that a bit. For me, I was like, well, I'll do contracting when I get out because then I'll get paid more. I can support. I was justifying it, right? Like, oh, well, I'll get paid more. I can still be supporting my family.
Yeah.
I'll be deploying for shorter stints, but I'll actually be out there doing more serious work. And it'll be kind of like, I was just justifying it, right?
Yeah.
And then there was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I was like, what is going on? And then that's when, more of the COVID stuff, just COVID for me was kind of when like I had a bunch of pins on the board for what's going on in the world. And I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And then it was COVID for me that kind of was the yarn that connected all of it. And I was like, there's a lot going on.
The light bulb went on.
Yeah, that was what it was for me. There's
something happened in the background here.
Yeah.
That we don't know about.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, okay, who benefits financially when there's war? And who benefits financially when there's sickness? And this, that, and the other. And it was all kind of hitting. And I was like, okay, if I don't know the intention of the conflict, yeah, once you're there, like once you're dropped in and you're in the desert and you got guys with AKs aimed at you, could I justify it if I wake up tomorrow morning and I'm there?
Yeah.
Sure. But can I justify getting on a plane, flying over there, putting myself there, then waking up there and defending myself as, well, I had to do what I had to do.
Yeah. When you don't really know like the actual end goal.
Yeah.
Like these powerful governments with a lot of money that are backed by people that we can't see are pulling strings, and am I going to be able to trust them with my morality?
Exactly. Yeah, I got to have a clean conscience, especially with a son and a wife. Like I can't come home all twisted up, not knowing who I am, trying to lead a family.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to connect a few dots here in a minute, but I'm going to ask you, how'd you get into, what are you doing now, and how did you get into that after the military? I know you went into the roofing side of things. How did you go from military roofing into what you're doing now, and what is that?
Cool. Yeah, so after the military, I just knew I needed to support my family. So I got into roofing because there was good money there. It was sales. I enjoy making friends, building relationships, and ultimately serving people. And so that was a way for me to do those things. I was making pretty good money. And let's see, 2 years in, I was the regional VP of a successful roofing company, already a structure for basically like a buyout plan, multiple seven figures on the buyout. I just needed to make sure it stayed, going in that trajectory.
Yeah.
And I was making the good money, and I'm looking around. I'm like, we have some, like, we can invest. Let's get into some investments, babe, because I always heard, millionaires have multiple revenue streams. So I'm like, okay, that's the plan, right? Shouldn't we all strive to be that? And so I'm looking around and I'm talking to, some family friends about what they do, what they enjoy. And I'm kind of thinking real estate. I'm like, real estate's attractive. Everyone thinks real estate when they think about it.
Everyone thinks real estate. Yeah.
First thing they think about. And so I'm kind of making some calls, setting some meetings. And I was like, you know what? Roofing season has a slow season. And a lot of these guys don't know about money, myself included. But I was trying to figure out more about it. So I was like, who can I take with me? And I was like, we have some guys that are making 5, 10, 20,000 in a month in roofing, but then there's a slow season for about 3 months and they're hurting. So if we can help them grow another revenue stream based on their relationship they're already building with the homeowners, great. Let's build something bigger than just, hey, we're roofers, right? Because I had something kind of hitting me on my heart is like, I'm not a roofer. Like I'm Tyler Klekamp. And I do roofing. Yeah. And I strive to do other things. So when I was trying to kind of diversify the portfolio and figure out who I am and where I'm going, I kind of brought it up. I was like, hey, maybe there's a way we can help these guys make multiple revenue streams. We can really build a sick culture here. And that wasn't really received. And for whatever reason it wasn't received, I kind of took that as, if my mindset is helping the guys even more than they're being helped and it's not getting received well, then I don't know that I can stay here. I probably need to go find something else where that is embraced mindset.
A priority.
Yeah. So I left I left that industry. We had a rough Christmas, December 2022, but the step in faith, knowing that that's not where I'm supposed to be, the conversation with my wife about, hey, I don't think I'm supposed to be here anymore. I have to leave it. That step of faith lined up everything, and I'm super grateful for it because Zach, you know Zach.
Yeah.
He's at the birthday party the other day.
Awesome dude.
Yeah, so Zach Stauffer, served with him in the military. He's actually the first person I told when I found out I was going to be a father.
Nice.
And amazing guy. So Zach, I called him because he used to live in Utah before the military. We served in the Marine Corps. I knew he had moved out here probably a year apart from me calling him. And I just hadn't called him because I was pretty involved in the roofing side.
Yeah.
And I called him. I was just like, hey, man, how are you doing? Like, what's up? You're in Texas now. Would love to get together. And he's like, yeah, I'm actually going to go to an event Saturday. It's a new thing that my wife and I are getting into. I'd love for you to come out. There's going to be a guest speaker, Matt Sapala. I think you've met Matt.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. And so he's like, Matt's a Marine. Like, we're going to be going over, financial literacy and kind of the economy. And I'm like, that's exactly what I've been wanting to learn about.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. I'm like, thanks. I want to see you. I want to learn that stuff. I'm going to come out. He's like, no pressure about it at all, but would love to see y'all there and, bring Violet. And so I'm like, of course. I get off the phone with Violet and I'm like, we're going to see Zach and Katrina on Saturday. And so we meet Matt Sapala, who runs our Carrollton office.
Yeah.
And we hear him speak about the economy, and it's like, it's just more of that yarn connecting more dots. And I'm like, cool, like this is the path I'm supposed to continue on. And he's just speaking out about money and how we're not taught anything about it in school. We're not taught how to run a business, where real estate's at, where the market's at. And again, talking about how the wealthy are continuing to get wealthier and the middle class and lower class, the gap between the wealthy
just keeps growing.
Is just getting wider and wider. And it's almost like if you don't hurry up and jump over that, you're going to miss the ship. And so, yeah, great information. So we joined their brokerage firm, which is PHP, People Helping People. Basically, we specialize in life insurance. We're a financial marketing organization, so we represent hundreds of top companies. And so we serve people through life insurance and retirement planning.
Yeah.
And within it, a lot of people don't know, but there's a lot of creative ways where you can build your money tax-free. You can have liquidity of the money.
Yeah.
So it goes very well with real estate, which I was interested in. Real estate during kind of my end times of roofing. And so we partner a lot with real estate and business owners and stuff like that to basically create custom strategies where they can leverage these plans, invest more. So based on wherever they're trying to go next.
Yeah, and we'll dive into some of that because I've got some interesting questions, and then there's a lot of financial gurus out there.
Oh yeah,
that drive me nuts. So we'll talk about those, and then the main question that I really wanted to ask, kind of piecing those two together between the military and what you do now, do you think that when you were there in the military and you were like connecting the dots on like, hey, there's something more going on here, especially with COVID going on, and there's something going on behind the scenes, and then getting out and then hearing kind of almost having like the light turn on like the financial side and having like a glimpse into possibly why, do you think that aided in pushing you towards what you're doing now is because of the questions you had in the military?
It definitely did. It also led me further because even in the last year, I've reconsidered the contracting stuff. That's always been, that's been what I've identified it as is it's been a self-serving desire.
Yeah.
For me, it was an ego thing that I didn't realize because I wanted to go prove to myself and to anyone watching that I can go be, hardcore or whatever. And just being around guys like you, Ezra, Justin, like we're already serving the community, helping them be sharper in that field. And I just kind of realized like I'm not supposed to go be away from my family and go do that. But I was through this environment as well. Like you start to realize the more perspective that can be shared from people that are doing something big with their life, it makes your plate bigger. It allows you to look through different lenses. And so I think by being around so many great people in the office and in our other business, it's allowed me to kind of shift lanes a little bit and be like, I can still have this fulfillment this sense of purpose, this time with my family, all of the things.
Yeah.
I just didn't solve that yet. And a lot of people, I don't think, spend enough time trying to solve it where they can have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
They're just like, that covers half of what I need and want. I'll take it.
Yep.
And then they're settling. And then they're getting into something that's actually leading them off their path.
Yeah. Well, and I run into this a lot. I have to fight myself and what I tell myself, and then also what I hear other people say. Because like I'm always chasing like other opportunities or business. I mean, I talk to you about like a lot of them, and advice that I always get from people that aren't doing that is, hey, you're filling your plate too much. You're gonna not have enough time for all this stuff. And I'm like, man, honestly, I'm just gonna kick it up a notch and hit the gas a little harder, and I'm gonna have enough time for this. And yeah, you only have 24 hours in a day. I get it. You can only work so much. You need to have that balance in life. But there's a lot of things that it's like, okay, hey, how can I balance? How can I stagger doing this and this and this? And how can I structure it in a way where like time management makes sense for me to do multiple things, not just one? I think people get too worried about, hey, I can only focus on this one task, this one career, this one job. And they don't also see the opportunity that they can spend like educating themselves on the side. Like I've got friends that just work an 8-hour day, and just an 8-hour day is like nothing. And then they have no ambition to go chase like a side gig for like 1 hour a night. And they keep telling themselves,
because that's their time, bro.
Yeah.
After they clock out, that's their time.
Well, it's just funny because it's like, hey, you can stay in your office. You don't have to go home. You don't have to break out of that work environment. You can start it right there. You can do it online. You can, there's so many avenues of making money nowadays just within educating yourself on how to do it. And like you said, right, college, and this is where I think people, when they come out of high school, they either go, people that see that, where it's like, hey, I really don't want to spend time in college, they either go the route of the military or they go the route of the blue-collar worker.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like those were the only two options that I had coming out of high school. And most of my friends, they either went military route or they went to blue-collar jobs. Because
I think that is expanding a little bit more just with social media
absolutely,
and other ways to run a business. But yeah, I feel the same way when I was getting out of high school. It's like, you going into trades or you going to college.
Yeah, because there were a few folks that wanted to go to college, and I did that dual enrollment thing, right? So like I got a taste of it for free, and it was just like the crappy, prerequisite classes that luckily I got them for free. I didn't have to pay for them, but it was like, yeah, I don't want to sit here and learn about like an arts class. Like this makes no difference in my life at all. This isn't educating me on anything bigger. And then, obviously I just kept in blue collar, but I think it's interesting the correlation there between like you start opening your eyes, you start chasing like your passion and self-development. The light goes on, hey, there's something bigger going on here. And then you get out and you see like a little glimpse of it through, your buddy Zach and the business. And I think that's kind of cool because it's you can just connect the dots that God's guided you
Oh yeah.
through this entire time. And I can definitely say the same in my life. It's pretty interesting to see like during the timeline, you're like, hey, I don't know where I'm going, but it's like, it feels like it's pre-planned.
It is. It's just the step. For me, the step was I understood I couldn't do what I was called to do in that industry. I stepped out of it in faith that I would figure out what was next. Yeah. And God had a plan.
That's awesome.
So it's cool to identify like that was the step that changed everything here. Yeah. And I'm always looking for that opportunity for the step.
That's awesome.
Or whatever the next step is.
Nice.
That's cool. You said you brought something up that sparked some fire in me. Yeah, it's kind of what motivates me, man, is you brought up the people that tried to stop you from expanding your capacity. Yeah. Right? And what I want to say is, first, most of those people aren't even watching this. They're not even going to watch this anyway because they're not really seeking growth value perspective. But, it was whenever I was going to pursue the life insurance retirement field, financial services industry, and start the business in tactical training, because that was like the same time.
Yeah, kind of kicking them both off at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But I had multiple confirmations that God is saying do both at the same time. Yeah. So I'm like, I'll do both at the same time. And I have people like, well, you know, the whole millionaire thing, you know, they were really good at one thing first, and then they did the other things. I'm like, awesome. If I wouldn't switch places with you, I would be a fool to listen to you and let that affect my decision.
Yeah.
So I'll take the advice from someone I want to maybe be like, a leader that I respect their household, their faith, how they glorify their friends, edify their friends, their relationships, and their cash flow.
Yep.
But it's like Steve Jobs. A lot of people forget that there's a bunch of self-made millionaire and billionaires.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was a normal guy with a big enough vision to blow up. He had the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So I think of Elon Musk.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Multiple times he's like, just work more.
Yeah.
Like, if you just want more, you've got to work more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there's no, like, secret ingredient. You've just got to do the work, put in the work.
Yeah, and people mistake time for work a lot because that's the system we're built in. You work a 9 to 5. I get to work at 9. I leave work at 5.
Yeah.
If I got this, and this done in that time, awesome. I'm still leaving at 5.
Yeah.
So it's not work-oriented. It's not task-oriented. You work until the time says you're done working, so then you
stop.
Disconnect. Yeah. It's wild.
I've always enjoyed, like, I don't know, strategic games, video games as a kid. Mm-hmm. Like when I was young, one, and I know this kind of sounds funny, but like Rome Total War was this game that was set back in like the Roman era, right? And you start off with very little assets. You just conquer and conquer and conquer and build more until you take over the known world. And that was like my favorite game growing up. And I enjoyed games like that like you start off with nothing and you grow more.
Did you take it over?
Oh, every time.
Nice.
Absolutely. Just keep advancing the difficulty level and keep learning more lessons.
Obtaining so many assets, bro. Life-changing.
That's right. Yeah. I know. It's just crazy, the development. But no, like I've always viewed like your career or life almost as like a video game, right? Like you start with what you have, and it's like, what kind of strategy can you place forward that can advance that faster and faster? And there's there's so many people out there that are like, just make more money, just do this, just buy more properties, just like, obviously not everyone's able to go those route, right? Yeah. Like not everyone is born with millions, not everyone is given loans, not everybody has good credit, not everybody has a lot of money sitting in the bank, not everybody has anything at all. And it's like when people go and they say, hey, don't take on that much, you're going to burn yourself out, or you're going to have not enough time to spread across the board. That's speaking from like their own personal knowledge base, which is where they're at in their life.
They're sharing their limits.
Yeah, their limits, right? Mm-hmm. And like, sure, you should provide a realistic look on your life because there's strategy built into like a realistic view. But like you mentioned, if you limit your vision to here, then you can't get higher. And it might take time, but as long as your vision is limitless.
Sorry, I want to hit on what's realistic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is like people have different opinions on what realistic is. Because my wife always laughs because I'll mention stuff. I'll be like, hey, like, you know, in a few years when we're here, like we're gonna be doing this, or like, you know, we have to do this with the kids, or like, and she chuckles.
Speaking vision into your family.
Yeah, and she chuckles because she realizes how a normal person may say, yeah, that's not realistic, but she just kind of chuckles and says, okay, cool, like I know we're gonna get there, which is really cool because I think both of us, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before this, we didn't have that, and we would have both been like, yeah, that's not realistic. And you know, we pray about it, and we know that God will guide our hand and stuff like that, and the growth, whether it's slow or fast or whatever in His will. But it's just interesting. I find the whole perspective of life and career and money is like you're just playing a game. Like how can you organize it strategically to advance a little bit faster or you know, a little bit smarter. So I think it just kind of connected when you said that. So
I feel like this should be touched on. Married folk. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not where you want to be in anything outside of your household, your business, your bank account, your associations, your friendships, your resources, go back inside the house and make sure that's good.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you're going to keep reliving these same lessons that are going to keep leading you back into your home to develop what's going on in your home with your spouse and your family. I just
100%.
think that's very key.
Yeah, and we preach this a lot in our business as well, but like we always say get back to the basics, right? Like God first, family next, work after that. If you don't have your spiritual relationship with God like set on a good foundation, if you're not taking time for that, your family life is going to fail. If your family life starts to fail, your work life is going to fail. If you don't have those in that order, things don't run properly and they don't run efficiently. It's like maintaining a vehicle, right? Like you can put no oil in it, but eventually it's gonna break down, and then you're gonna have a lot of extra expenses to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't spend time with God, your family's gonna break down. There's gonna be consequences for that, and if your family breaks down, your business will fail. So you've got to put the right order of things.
That's so important, because if you're seeing signs of that, you just need to go back.
Yeah, just take one step back
Yep.
and focus on that, right? Like if you're having failures in your marriage, or your family isn't operating the way that it should, take a step back and start praying, fasting, studying more, right? And spending more time with God, and he'll align that in your family life. And then same thing with your work. If your work is not going the way that it should be, you got to go back to your family and God, take those two steps and like, where can I improve here, and take the extra time invested into that where the other can benefit. So
yeah, communication
is
so important. And I'm not speaking from a place where I think I got it all figured out.
Oh no.
It's a day to day.
Well, you and I both have like merely started on this journey. Like this is just part of us like putting out that vision, right? That's what we hope to happen in life. That's what we pray happens in life, but that vision is just now starting. So
visionaries are liars until it happens, right?
That's right.
So funny. Cool.
Well, awesome. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to dive into more of the financial market, what you guys do in your business, and then kind of tie it into construction, whether you're the employee or the owner of a company, and how you can utilize strategies within your organization to hopefully help your people also have that financial success.
Sweet. Let's do it.
Cool. Well, all right, Tyler, we're back from the break. Appreciate the talks that we had earlier about kind of the intro to our relationship, how you got into military career, a little bit of your blue-collar background, and then obviously what you're doing now. I'd love to dive further into the financial area. I know when we talk to our partners in the construction industry, a lot of times we try to initiate some like better ways that they can advance their employees in their life, whether that's through the value of purpose is a huge one that we consult on a daily basis, but also kind of giving them the tools that they need, whether that's like software to help integrate into their business, whether that's media, marketing, training, software, or whatever it is, to help their people grow internally in the organization. But another area that we try to talk about is a lot of times what are your people doing outside of your organization? How are they doing in their life? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they miserable? What's going on a daily basis behind the scenes? And we try to help push our companies to develop that greater purpose in their life outside of work. And one area that is obviously finances is a huge one, right? So I kind of wanted to dive into two different perspectives and kind of discuss what you guys do on a deeper level in the insurance side. I'm sure I'll ask a whole bunch of questions about the business and strategies and things, but kind of fill us in on what you do and how an individual can work with some strategies, and how a company owner or like a business can integrate this into their business to help out their people.
Cool. Yeah. So first and foremost, a lot of people like that stuff. It gets very fascinating. You can get very creative with it. It's like getting a custom sports car. Like you can customize every part of it to the individual based on what they want it to do. A lot of people get into that and they just want that, and they're kind of miss the part that's actually more important, which is the life insurance part. So I'll get on that first, and then we'll get into that. But what we're seeing a lot of is people are underinsured, or they don't even know what they have. They just, I have something through work. They do that with their retirement. They do that with their insurance, their medical, all the things. And usually the person that's having them sign those papers doesn't really know what it is either. They don't even really know who to go to find out what they have. And so, sadly, what we see a lot of is people that aren't insured that thought they are, or they have it, but there's certain limits to it. And the whole purpose of life insurance is to make sure that if something happens to you, it doesn't affect you and your family financially. And so in the construction space, I mean, it's dangerous. You know, people have lost their lives in construction space. I remember I was out on a rig and like we had just set up equipment, got called back out like 2 days later. They were supposed to have it for a couple of months. And it was a big order. So we're like, we're going to be there all day. What happened? And so we go back out and a chain had hit a guy, killed him. And so I think of instances like that where I don't know if he was insured. I wasn't in the field yet in this industry, but, you know, if he wasn't insured, maybe he's covered, maybe he's not. Average funeral is like 25, 30 grand nowadays. And so I actually have a military buddy of mine right now, and he called me the other day. He lost a friend. And he sent me a link to look at like their GoFundMe account, and they need $25,000. So I would assume
they didn't have anything.
They need a funeral cost coverage, and most Americans don't have $1,000 in their account, so they're not going to have $25,000 sitting around. And so that's always kind of hard being in this industry and seeing those GoFundMe accounts. We've all seen them. We've all had like a friend or family member get sick, pass away, and then people go to GoFundMe. GoFundMe was created to help basically people with great business ideas. It was supposed to be like an investment portfolio.
What is
the platform?
The new platform is like Kickstarter or something like that?
I'm not familiar with it, but
so it's kind of the same.
Cool.
But yeah, it's like people invest in the business. But yeah, GoFundMe was like, hey, you need your business up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Find
supposed to be
personal investors.
Investment platform, and it's used for injuries and deaths is what it went to. And that's basically because people lack the information that could help them be basically proactive about it. Like, we insure our car, it may or may not get wrecked. We insure our house, it may or may not get wrecked. We don't insure our life, we know we're going to die.
Yeah, it's
kind of wild.
For certain.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So we love helping people with that. We just recently had a friend of ours, we had a meeting. She said, not right now. Fast forward like a month, maybe a month and a half, sent a text, hey, I'm in the hospital. You know, she's pregnant too, so they were like checking on the baby. She's like, I should have probably listened to y'all. And those are always hard because it's a really interesting space to be in when sometimes it feels like you're inconveniencing someone for the betterment of themselves.
Yeah.
And they can see that as like, you're being so pushy, like you're like, why do you want to, like, what are you benefiting from pushing me so hard? It's like, I'm benefiting this being my responsibility to serve you and your responsibility to protect yourself because it has a ripple effect on your family.
Yeah.
So let's get this done. And it's kind of an interesting space to work within. So
yeah,
that's what we need everybody to have. And we love working with businesses about it because there's other benefits in doing that. If you're providing insurance for your people, you've just given them a benefit.
Yeah.
You get them a $500,000 policy and they're going off to work and their spouse knows, hey, if something did, God forbid, happen to my husband, I know at least financially we'll be okay for a couple years while I figure out what to do next. It's not, no one ever wants to think about it, but
it's that unknown.
It happens. You don't wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to get cancer today. You don't wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I think today I'll pass away at age 35, age 40, and leave my family.
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to go there, especially men, like construction field men, rough and tough. I'm going to work till the day I die, right? It's like, you don't get to decide that part. So have something set up. But.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, men in the industry typically don't give a crap what happens to themselves. They don't care if they get injured on a job or die on the job. They really don't care about themselves.
Same with military, yeah.
Yeah, and we used to, do site walks and safety walks and be like, hey, here's a safety concern, take it, in account. And a lot of those guys are like, hey, like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I don't need to listen to you. And, I'm not doing anything wrong anyway. But when you start explaining, hey, like, when you fall off that ladder or when you cut yourself with this or you break some bones and you're out of work for 4, 5, 6 months, Who's providing for your family?
Yep.
No one's out. How much pain and suffering are you going to put them through? Like, I don't care about your broken bones. I don't care about you being on bed rest for 4 months. You don't care about that either. What you really care about is like, hey, is my family set? And when you put it into perspective of like, hey, what's your family going to look like if this happens to you? Then they're like, oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I should look at that.
Yeah, and it's so nice when you do have those kind of clarifying questions, and then there can be like a common space of like,
Yeah.
I'm looking out for you. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people don't, and we're lacking agents. So like, there's actually not enough agents right now to even educate the general public, which is why we're really passionate about it.
Yeah. So if you want a new career,
yeah, I mean, we're
contact Tyler.
over here hitting the mic. We're looking for good people only. I don't want phone calls if you're a bum.
Yep. Yeah.
No, just kidding.
If you're
I'll still
lazy,
talk to you.
just get out of here.
Yeah, I want to give everyone a fair shot, right? But no, it takes. We're looking for people that are good morals and principles, character, right?
Yep.
That actually want to serve. There's definitely money in the industry.
Yeah.
That's not what's going to get you far in the industry. You'll make money. That's a result, right, of
Yeah,
how many
of
people
having
you
the right
serve.
Yep.
But yeah, absolutely. As far as the other side, right? So there's 3 different kinds of life insurance, and it's developed over the years. So people used to think of life insurance as, when I die, my family gets money, right? So it's like you're planting a seed, someone else can appreciate the tree later. And that's what it was for a long time. And back in the 60s, people would live to like 62, 65 years old, pass away, money would be transferred to the family. Now, people are living 20, 25 years longer, but the chance of a critical illness phase of someone's life is way higher. Do you have anyone in your family with heart attack, stroke, cancer, critical illness, or your wife's family, or a friend of yours?
Not that I know of. Not like a.
Nice.
Yeah. Now my grandmother smoked since she was like 4, so she had lung cancer and died at like 76, 78.
Yeah.
But I mean, that
Still
was
lives 78. Women live longer than men. Good
yeah,
for
it's
them.
crazy.
4 years old.
Yeah, she drank like sludge black coffee every morning. That's where I get my coffee addiction.
Is that the
from.
secret?
I think it is.
Fountain of
People
youth is-
keep telling me to drink less coffee, and I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
that's really fortunate.
Yeah.
I'm glad you don't have that in your bloodline.
At least that I know.
Yeah.
At least that I know of. Yeah.
Awesome. My grandpa on my dad's side, heart attack at a young age. I think that's the main one that I can think of in my direct bloodline. But most people know someone. What they put in our food, right? Like red dye 40.
Yeah.
Like
Everyone's getting pumped
like
with crap.
40 ingredients, right? But essentially, the chance of a critical illness phase of someone's life is much higher. We used to think cancer was an old person thing. Now we're seeing people in their 20s and 30s. We're even seeing children with like leukemia, stuff like that. So what life insurance companies did is their whole purpose was to make sure that their client was taken care of financially. They were having clients with a death benefit start getting cancer or have a heart attack or stroke that took them out of the workspace. They weren't making the money. Their family was having to come and take care of them. And then it wasn't until they died that they got kind of like reimbursed for those funds if there was a big enough policy. We've also had clients that haven't passed. Well, we haven't had clients. We have different benefits. But we've had stories of clients of other companies that have had, their family members actually wish they would have just died because of the burden they felt they put on their family by having cancer keep coming back.
Yeah.
Or a stroke that they couldn't go back into the workforce. And so what life insurance companies, the ones we represent, they came out with is living benefit. So what living benefit does is if our client has a stroke, heart attack, critical illness, or needs long-term care, they're able to access the death benefit while they're still alive, tax-free. Nice. So if they have a $500,000 policy and find out they have cancer, it takes them a year out of work, a year of recovery, a year of babysitters because their spouse needed to sleep overnight at the hospital. They needed to travel for doctor's visits, whatever. It racks up quick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it costs $200,000 in that year. Maybe they beat cancer.
Yeah.
If they had a policy, they're good. They can replace income with it. They can do whatever they need to do with it. And then when they're good, great, go back to work.
Now, my understanding is when you access those funds, those are basically deducted from the final death benefit.
From the death benefit, yes.
Cool. Okay. So like that's how the insurance companies are able to justify it, is like, okay, well, we already know we're going to pay out when you die.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically just taking out what we would pay out when you die and giving it to you now so that you don't die and we don't have to pay out more money.
Exactly. Yeah, they're paying it regardless.
Yeah.
So it's already their money. So they're like, let's just let them have it early under these conditions, right?
Do any like rates rise for those folks that have those issues?
Whatever it's signed in at. You mean like at signing, or if
like when you sign in, let's say they give you a good rate because you're in good health, then you come into some health issues. Obviously, you access that benefit, and you go, okay, now I don't have good health, or it might be a chronic thing until I die. Do they raise the rates, or are they able to raise the rates while you're not in great health?
That one, it's under contract. You're paying the same rates. So we always say it's better to have had life insurance 20 years ago.
Yeah,
the second best time would be today.
Yeah.
If we find clients that aren't insured, we love getting insurance policies with cash value for like young children.
Yeah.
'Cause there's so much time for it to grow, and it's tax-free growth.
Now so you've got the death benefit policies. You've got death and life benefit, and then you've got this third category, right? Like death and life, there's nothing being invested in those two policies, correct?
No, that's just your ability to use it while you're alive if a health issue arises.
Well, and this is what like attracted me to it, was the fact that like I hate health insurance. I think it's a scam.
Government's all in it now.
Yeah, well, government's all in it. And I've never hit my deductible ever. Like when I had policies when I was working in construction companies, I mean, we had our kids, $5,000-$6,000 for a kid, and I would never hit that deductible. So I never got paid anything. I just had to do out of pocket anyway. So I was paying, $2,200 a month for my family, and still paying $5-6 grand, when the baby came. And we don't ever go to the doctor for anything. So it was like,
yeah, you had the baby in your backyard, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was like gardening, and I'm just kidding. We're going too far into this. She would hate that, but yeah. So like, paying nothing, or getting nothing in it, and still paying a ton of money just pissed me off. So I don't have health insurance. I don't know if that's a good thing, if I should say that online, but I don't.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows now.
Somebody's gonna hit me with a truck on purpose. No, but the benefit of having the life insurance policy with the living benefit is it's much cheaper than health insurance. And if you're like me, where it's like you never go to the doctor anyway, and the only thing you're worried about is like a catastrophic event, that covers the catastrophic events.
Yeah.
So that's why it appealed to me, is the fact that it's like much more affordable, and it covers the only real health thing that I really care about, which is like, hey, am I on my deathbed, or did I get seriously injured?
Yeah. Because you're stubborn, you're going to keep working if you're good on the other parts.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's cool. Now, okay, we've got those two types, and then there's a third one, which you've talked to me a lot about. So go into that.
Yeah. So then there's permanent cash value accounts. So maybe you've heard of like whole life. So a lot of people think it's kind of been like whole life has been viewed as like this one thing, and it's developed. So like think of whole life when it first came out as like a pager, and now it's gone to iPhone, Gen 15 or whatever. So a lot of people aren't educated on where it's gone.
Yeah.
And so that's when it gets kind of interesting with like investors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or people that have heard of the older version. I don't have a license to lose a client money. It's not exposed to losses in the market through the vehicles that we offer. So like we use index strategy. So under the umbrella of life insurance, right, people started to get life insurance policies that build cash value because tax code 7702, the IRS cannot tax the growth that happens under the umbrella of a life insurance policy. So there used to not even be like a ceiling on it. So people were just dumping money into these policies. They were able to leverage the money because they have liquidity, and they were like washing money, all this crazy stuff. It's more regulated now.
Yeah.
But
as everything becomes once you start being successful at it.
People get creative, right? And then, that's only for certain people to leverage those things, right? And that's kind of what we've seen is a lot of these strategies have kind of been kept from the general public for a long time. And, you think of some big banking or financial companies that they'll only cater to a client base once they're making, if you don't have 7 figures in the account, you can't walk in the door.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you got to be in the know. You got to know the right guy. And we just simply believe everyone should be aware of some of the rules of the money game so they can just strategize the best for where they are and where they want to be. Because it's not, the gap with a lot of this is not that you need money to go make money. you can make money with a little bit of money. It's learning how to leverage it. People are not getting taught how money works.
Yeah.
They're not being exposed to strategies to grow it. So they're being taught fixed. You can put it in a bank and it won't grow. It won't outpace inflation. So your money is losing value in the bank. But it's safe, right? It's FDIC insured. Interesting that it's FDIC insured, right? Insurance. Yeah. So then, or they're taught variable. So it's like stocks, real estate, stuff like that, where it can grow, but
there's risk.
There's risk, right? It's like you'll lose money, you just don't know how much or when. And so that's interesting because then people are having to pick a percentage of how much do I want to make sure is safe and how much do I want to make sure can grow, but I'm also risking it. So usually the younger you are, the more you kind of have risk in the portfolio because you say, well, I have time to recover.
Yeah.
We do indexing strategies, which guarantees no losses. So it has safety and growth. And it operates in a 0 to 9%. So if the market goes up 10, you get 9 of it. If it goes up 5, you get 5 of it. If it goes down 10, you don't participate in any loss. So when it's climbing, it looks more like a stair step versus the market might do this and then this.
And this is where I lose a lot of people when I start explaining this to them is like how it's like guaranteed. And like I've talked about this is like when you put money into like a 401k, you're on the stock market. When you lose money in the stock market, your 401k drops, right? And then if you lose money or if the stock or the economy drops in what you're talking about, you can't go below that guaranteed mark. And so like when I tell people it's guaranteed, they're like, nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, I'm just telling you like based off of that, that's what they say they're only going to pay you out on the benefit of it, not the losses or the risks.
It's always interesting too with that part is because for a lot of people, they'll just choose to not flip over the stone.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm telling you it exists. Like if you were told the Loch Ness Monster exists and you have a person that can go show you where it lives and prove if it does or not, wouldn't you go? You'd be like, let's see that, And it's like, some people are like, no, it just doesn't, man, and I'm out of here. Yeah. It's like, okay. I mean, all I can do is try to help you.
And I'm one of those. I'm one of those people that like I'm pretty skeptical about anything that's like, oh, this is too good to be true, right? Like I always want to do my due diligence and read stuff, and that's like working through what we've got going on. I'm like, hey, I want to read the policy. I want to read this. I want to see what kind of nuances are in it, right? And there's a lot of folks.
Keep listening. Keep talking.
Yeah,
I'm going to just pull up some funny stuff.
Yeah. So like, because there's a lot of bad information out there. What is? Can you explain to them like what this is called? Like, what's the typical name?
Index Universal Life.
So it's insurance. An IUL policy. IUL. Which so if you Google or YouTube,
some people have heard like infinite banking strategies, and it's like this very elusive thing because people are like dropping the name out for like a little simmer factor.
Yeah, and they I want to describe it more later.
People don't really know where to go or who to talk to about someone breaking it down. So like I can break it down, and I represent multiple companies that offer it. Yeah. So I can break it down for this company, or this company, how that would work for that specific client.
Yeah.
But a lot of people want like a brochure on it. It's custom.
Yeah.
It's catered to the client.
You can't show every scenario in a brochure. But yeah, I mean, like if you Google IUL or individual, what is it? Individual
Index Universal Life.
Index Universal Life. Mm-hmm. If you Google or YouTube those, there's going to be a lot of people bashing this.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting because I Google and I YouTube and I try to self-educate on everything I can to get, devil's advocate to whatever I'm doing, make sure it's safe and reliable. But I think it's interesting because every time somebody's bashing it, they can't really explain why. But you've got something?
Yeah. So first with the bashing, right, is when you think about the strategy, if all the wealthy people are banking on the common people's ignorance, do they want the common people to know the strategy that the wealthy are using to become wealthy?
No.
They don't.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. There's also a lot of people that bank on ignorance in regard to, you don't know about money. I do. Give me your money and I'll help you make some, but I'm also going to take a cut.
Yeah. So like financial advisors.
So if we teach people a way where they can grow their money tax-free, they can understand where they'll end up if they're putting this much in and actually say, guaranteed minimum you'll end up with is this amount at your retirement age.
Yeah.
And if you need the money, you can actually borrow. You're not even pulling your money out. You're going to borrow from the company, their money, because they're billion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
You can borrow from them, use other people's money, invest it, do whatever you need to do with it. And then you can pay it back now, or if you don't get around to paying it back, you can pay back later. Or if you don't pay it back at all, they'll actually just take it from your death benefit.
Yeah.
And then you're good.
So this is where I heard, and you and I were discussing this earlier, is the fact that, like, let me see.
You can read the Google search.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So Google search was borrowing against your own policy, right?
No. How did Walt Disney fund Disneyland?
Oh, yeah. Okay. How did Walt Disney fund Disneyland? So it says this was a tool Walt Disney used to finance his ambitious Disneyland project. He borrowed against his life insurance policy when other sources' funding seemed unreachable.
The banks wouldn't loan him money after the Great Depression for a Disneyland park.
Which is, now look at how successful.
So he said, I'll do it myself.
Yep.
And he leveraged his life insurance policy.
Interesting. Yeah. And I know there's tons of stories out there like that.
Yeah.
But so going back to the borrowing, right? And like you and I were talking about before, there's a bunch of financial gurus that are more old school, that are more talking to like the average Joe that can't pay off their credit card debt, like Dave Ramsey. A Dave Ramsey program may be just fine for somebody that is just seeking removal of credit card debt or any kind of debt, or like, hey, how can I, space out, XYZ, how do I get to the end of this and get out of a hole that I've dug for myself, right? Perfectly fine. But I heard him talk about the IUL policy on a video and borrowing it. And he's like, you're basically paying in to this policy, and all the money that you're paying into it, even when you have to borrow it, you're still loaning it back out to yourself. You're borrowing your own money. It's like, but he was talking about like a bad thing, like, you still have to ask permission to take your money back out. And it's like, well, that's because it's growing. And there's like a plan where there's a maturity in the fund where you still have to mature it, right? If you're lobbing money into this thing, it doesn't mature until a certain year. Mm-hmm. And then when you do pull it out, like, don't you want that to keep growing?
Yeah.
So obviously you're going to be putting it back in to the policy. So like, what would you say about that? Where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm loaning myself the money that I've already put in. Like, why do I need to ask to have that money back? It's already my money.
See, that's what's really interesting too is, so his model, right, everyone has like their niche.
Yeah.
And so his niche is he can serve a lot of people that need help with like step 1, maybe step 2. And then if they choose to seek further development, it gets more custom. It's just like we have a basic CQB course, right?
Yeah.
It's the basics. You can still go do something with that. Are you going to get invited to get in a stack with me and go help somebody?
No.
No, not if you just got the basics. Are you going to walk into Merrill Lynch and open an account with them because you took a Dave Ramsey course? No. Do I think he's helping a lot of people? Yes.
Yeah.
I think he is. I think that there's also a lot of things you can say on the internet that
could be taken out of context.
And it gets engagement. That's what everyone, it's marketing. And so it creates controversy. That's what I love about us being a brokerage. For multiple carriers that we represent, if you want $30K loaned out, you get on your app, it's in your account in a couple of days.
See, I love that.
You're not asking. It's like
especially
becoming your own bank.
Yeah, especially coming from like a business owner's perspective. Early on in a business, cash flow is kind of like the biggest killer of most small businesses, right? Like, we are almost 5 years in, and we don't have any debt in our business. The only debt that I guess I would incur is like my personal vehicle. That's it. And I'm really proud of that fact. But at the same time, like, cash flow still hurts us on a daily basis, right? Like, I still have to manage payroll, expenses. Like, we spent 20 to 25 grand this last month, which sounds small to most construction companies that are listening to this podcast. But that's, for like another camera and some like storage devices, like servers that I've got to integrate into our business. And we don't make a killing on overhead. Like, we don't make a ton of money. So it'd be the equivalent of like a construction company having to spend millions of dollars on equipment, to run their business because they're making millions of dollars back on it on another job. But the fact that, you've got to manage this cash flow in your business, that's what kills businesses the most, most of the times early on in business. And so the fact that you could start, hey, I can budget for X amount to go into an account every month, And then let's say 5-10 years down the road, hey, we're struggling in business. The economy sucks. Like, how do I weather the storm? Okay, well, I can borrow back out for, these expenses that I have in my business and float it for a little while and then just use it as like a loan. Like, I don't have to go to the bank and ask Chase. I don't have to go to a credit union and be like, hey, here's my credit app and pull all this stuff and ask for a credit line. I can just go to myself and say, hey, I need this. And then you just withdraw it. And okay, yeah, you're going to pay back into it because ultimately that's still growing you more money for later down the road. So correct me if I'm wrong on any of that.
Well, what's interesting about it too is, like, we talked earlier a little bit about like construction, speaking to that space, that goes up and down with the economy, just like real estate.
Yeah.
So if you're in a place where you're needing the money or the business is having a hardship, it's probably at the same time the market is also having some struggles.
Yeah.
Which means the money you have invested in the market is having struggles. Funny enough, when people need their money the most, it's when the market's doing the worst. So then they're pulling on when the market's down, paying a fee to try and fix something to buy time for the market to maybe go back up and their business hopefully go back up, versus someone leveraging one of these strategies, it doesn't participate in the market going down. So if your construction business is facing a hardship and the market's been on a downward for a couple years, whatever, and you do need the money, you're not getting penalized for it and it hasn't been dropping. Your worst case scenario, it just was at zero that year. Well, maybe your competition was at a negative 5, 10, 20%, whatever the market's doing. So it allows a calmness with the decision making, which is nice.
Yeah.
Now, in regard to, I guess, like leveraging it, right? So like we work with a lot of real estate as well, and business owners. So if their goal is, hey, I'll talk on a few things within just how it kind of works with businesses. Say you and I go into business and the company's building, it's worth multiple millions. Let's say you need to insure me because I cover A, B, C, and D of the business. And if something happened to me, you need to hire someone really solid that can jump right in and take it over. What would you need to pay someone to do that? You know? So also another thing, if something happened to me, my spouse gets this part of the business.
Yep.
What if you don't want to go into business with my spouse? But,
then you have to buy out half or a quarter or whatever that partnership is.
Yeah. And so one thing we do is we get partners policies on everyone that's a main partner, a key element. And so that way, if anything were to happen, God forbid, if they need to do a buyout, the business just received a death benefit from them passing. The spouse can also receive a death benefit from them passing. And then if they want buyout, leverage it for that. If they want you to just cover it, leverage it for new hires, right? So like there's money there to support that. And then there's other strategies, right? So we do this, like I just had a client recently that flips homes. They've been doing it for a couple decades. And so they're good financially, they're very comfortable, but they have an exit plan for 3 years, they want to retire. And so when you have that kind of money, a lot of people are like, oh, I'll self-retire, I'm good. And so how we usually cater to those kinds of clients that are already very financially set, it's, hey, you're blessed, your children are blessed. It's an interesting percentage, I'll look it up, but how fast money can leave a family in just a generation or two.
Yeah.
Because the person it's getting passed to didn't educate themselves to have it. It's like when someone in the middle of nowhere wins a lottery ticket, it's gone in a couple of years because they weren't financially educated to keep it and leverage it. So it'll dissipate. And so we see that happen a lot. So we talk to them about, hey, we need to set up something for your bloodline so as the money passes through, they're good through a family trust and stuff like that. We also talk to them about you don't have living benefits. So average living benefits in Texas is $76,000 a year. So God forbid one of them is to face, or both of them is to face some kind of critical illness. They need to go maybe live in a home or need to pay someone to come live with them. That's going to cost on average $76,000. That's average. They don't seem like the people that want average care. So how do we leverage it where your business can pay your policy can cover anything that could happen in the unforeseen future so that you can keep building this wealth that you've worked your whole life to build? So that works with businesses as well. So say you're a construction business, you want to go buy some new equipment, right? Wouldn't it be cool if instead of paying cash or getting a loan from a bank, you just put that money in a policy and leverage a strategy we call arbitrage strategy, which is when you're using it so that you can pull it back out and reinvest it. So you put it in, it begins growing, you take a loan out, buy the equipment. Now, the loan was on your carrier, which you have unlimited time to actually pay it back. So if anything happens, you're good. Once that equipment starts making you money, start paying back the policy.
And you don't have any like penalties or APRs or anything?
It's usually like a 5.5% that you're paying back, which is going to be pretty good loan rate compared to a bank or stuff like that.
Now, is that because like the insurance company, like that's one way that they can fund these policies? So through like an APR?
Well,
is that...
So you're getting they need to make the money where they can make it, right? So like if the market goes over 9%, that's their money.
Yeah.
And they're also like, the market will grow. Like the market is growing. It's just that in our lifetime, right, we're going to face a lot more ups and downs than if you're a business, like an insurance company. Life insurance has been around for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So the market is doing this. When you zoom out of the graph and you look at it over the last
growing.
Couple hundred years, it's an up. So they're always going to be profiting because they're not in this, like from 60 to 65, it was down and now I can't retire. They're like, that's fine. They got old money. Like, they're good. It would be at about a 5% loan and then you pay it back. But what's cool about it is you're borrowing their money. Your money's still in there growing. If your money's growing at a 0 to 9 and the market's in a clean spot, if it's negative, you're just paying the loan back at the 5% or so. Mm-hmm. If it's positive and you're still growing, let's say it's growing at 8, you're still up 2-3%.
So your growth really never stops, even when you loan it out to yourself.
No, you're growing. You're good. And you took the loan of other people's money.
That's good, because I thought it was like, okay, hey, I take this out, it's loaning myself my own money, and now I'm hindering the fact that it's going to make better return.
Yeah. So like there's certain parameters within the like how much you loan, right?
Yeah.
So like the more you put in, the more you unlock, right? So if you're putting in let's say 30, 40,000 annual, it can unlock a strategy where you can get access sooner. If not, it needs to mature the 10 years, right? And the whole, like you're buying it, it's a long game move. There's just other benefits you can leverage early. Yeah. So I talked to some people that are like, well, what if I just put money in for, 5 years and then I pull it all out? Why would you do that? There's so many benefits to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It's really like, okay, what long-term are you looking for, like a quick payout? Because like anything that you invest in isn't going to have a quick payout anyway, no matter what the return is. I mean, you could go really risky in the markets and try to make a killing like in a year or two, but then go do that. Like don't put it into this.
Yeah, it just shows. I mean, that's the thing too, is we're not trying to get people to like jump into these by any chance. It really is usually a few meetings of education, questions, getting to know their business model and see what makes sense. Because last thing we want is for someone to get into something that doesn't actually serve them to the fullest. So it's structuring custom plans.
Yeah.
So if they aren't seeing the benefit of why they would want to keep it, then we probably need to have a couple more meetings and like walk through some more scenarios together. Because again, it's usually just because people are thinking of the here and now and not, hey, what's your plan? Like, do you plan on selling? Like, do you want to set up a policy that can absorb the money when you sell? Like, what else do you want to do in your life? Do you need a trust? Yeah. Do you want to set up multiple policies to fund a trust as a beneficiary and then set up family banking like the Rockefellers? Like, what do you want?
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between having your wealth now and like making it generational.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when I think of wealth, like I don't want to just drop, millions of dollars into my kid's bank account, but I still want them to have access to it if they need it.
Yeah, for sure. So like, you can set parameters and stuff like that.
So one of the arguments online that I always see is like the fact of, okay, if I'm throwing money into this, one, I've got to be investing into it long term, and then like, what if I need it, right? And then there's like a bunch of fees. How does you've got the insurance companies, and you've got like your company, which is like the brokerage, or like you guys are marketing all these different banks or life insurance companies that have this available. How does your business make money? How does the insurance company make money? And then like walk around that aspect, because I feel like a lot of people get scared because they're like, oh, well, they're just like stealing money from me and they're using it in this weird way, and like I'm gonna get hit with all these fees and there's some hidden stuff that I don't know about. So like, what's the nitty gritty on like how do you as an individual, or like how do you as an individual get money through this? How does PHP get money, and then how does the life insurance company get money, and how does everybody make money on this?
Cool. So how I get paid, which is pretty cool, is we're a financial marketing organization, right? So these carriers, billion-dollar companies, they don't know how to always reach the middle and lower class, or kind of like different cultures as well. So we're super diverse. We were like 51% women at PHP, which is phenomenal. And we have like every culture in one office, which is really cool. So we're able to connect, build trust and relationships with our communities, and just educate. We're very big on educating people about this and figuring out where we can meet them and serve them where they are, right? Like I said, the life insurance part is the most important part. So like, take a single mom with a couple kids, needs to just make sure she's covered at least until they're young adults, right?
Yeah.
So if she is, tight on cash flow, we want to meet her where she is. Hey, how much do you make a year? How much do you owe on the home? Are you in any debt? Is there a certain amount of money you want to make sure is left behind in the case of your passing or some kind of critical illness? We figure out that number, and we want to insure her for at least 5 to 10 years of what she needs, so that she can continue to pay her mortgage, pay the groceries, pay the medical bills, replace her income if she had to, and still raise her children, or pay for someone to come help and support with her children, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that woman needs a few $100,000 of protection, $500,000 of protection. A lot of people think insurance is so expensive. It's really not. So if you're insured off 3 things, right? So your age, your gender, and your health, right?
Sexist.
Yeah, I'm
just kidding.
Yeah,
insurance
absolutely.
is sexist. No, just kidding.
I'm out of here, man. No, but women live longer.
Yeah.
So women do tend to be insured at a better rate than men for a lot of reasons, right?
Oh, really?
We're a little risky. But yeah, so age, gender, and health. So if she just wanted to go on the affordable side and make sure she got a lot of insurance, she could get a term policy for 20, 30 years. Her kids will get into adulthood. If anything happens during that time, there's money to support. If nothing happens, it's just like your car insurance. You paid into it in case something happens, right? Now, let's say she's paying $50 a month for the policy. The carriers we represent will pay for the year, so it'd be $600. And then some of the carriers we represent will actually pay over 100% based on the client relationship and the kind of policy we're putting out, right? So let's say that's $600, right? We'll just leave it at 100%. And then the average agent is at a 50% commission rate. So that agent, for insuring that mother for $50 a month, would make $300 for a simple conversation. Hey, let's talk about how much you make, how much you need, what this looks like, how much you want to make sure is there for your kids. Awesome. We can find you something. They make $300. And so it's what I really love about it is it doesn't help me as an agent to push a sale harder, right? So like, there's an interesting moral line that's super important, because on the moral side, if she's being cheap and is not going to insure herself at a high enough amount to actually protect what she's trying to protect, it's my obligation to at least let her know, hey, let's just break down the numbers here, right? You're making $50,000 a year. If you passed away tomorrow, how much money do you have for your kids? How much is the mortgage? What do you have in place to help the kids? Okay, $100,000 is not enough, right? So I always say the best policy is a policy in force. So we can meet people where they are. We always have annual reviews. But if I know that that's why it's important to talk about budget, right? So like, if I know she's spending $1,000 a month on dinners out with friends, family, coworkers, right? Then I also know there's room. It's not that a lot of people think like, oh, I don't have it. It's like, well, you have some habits that maybe we could adjust so you could prioritize this. So that's just the way we talk. Like, that's a conversation to have with the client.
Yeah.
Now, if they actually are just very tight, hey, let's do this. let's help you find opportunity, but we can always stack. That's what's great too, is people think they need to end all be all perfect policy for themselves. I have 8 policies between my wife, myself, and my son. So they all cover different things. And so you can always just get another policy. Now, if it's someone that's not in a financially great spot and there's not really room to adjust the budget, we want to meet them where they are. If that's going to be $30 a month to make sure you have something, that's where it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. If I were to push that person and say, no, do 100, because then the insurance company might pay me $600 instead of, a couple $100, it's not helping the client, because if she can't actually continue to pay it, that policy can lapse. If that policy lapses, that doesn't look good on her. That doesn't look good on the business I brought to the carrier. So then that'll be reflected on my relationship with the carrier and the client, and it's not doing what I came there to do, which is make sure she's protected.
So the agent, like you, gets paid off commission, but if that person is only on there for 1 year, obviously that doesn't make any sense for you to push somebody into a bigger policy because they're only going to be on it for so long.
Yeah, and it's possible to get chargebacks too. So like if I write bad business, right? Because here's something that can happen, right? There's plenty of immoral people out there. They go find someone that has a retirement plan. They say, which we do help people with actually structuring, moving a retirement plan so that it's not hit by taxes or losses in the market. But let's say someone just inherited $20,000 and they say, oh, you should put it all in this policy. They get paid commission on it. The policy lapses. Is that bad business? Was it a misunderstanding? What is it? So to keep everyone morally sound, the carriers will do chargebacks. So if I have a client,
to the person who
to the agent
sold it.
Yeah. So if I sell a bad policy and it lapses because I didn't communicate the importance of it or meet the client where they can financially do it, the money's going to get pulled right back out of my account.
So there's a lot of risk if you're trying to push for something that's not ethically good.
Yeah, you just don't do. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
because I think that's where a lot of people are like, well, they get paid on, such a high commission. They're just going to try and get the most money out of me so they can get the best, commission.
No, we say a lot. It's not about how much you make on that one policy. It's about how many individuals you help where they are. Because if you go help 1, 2, 3 people and they say, oh, like I could maybe do 100 a month, I'm going to show you a $50 app. If you say you could do 100, I'm going to show you something so comfortable that you're going to rock that for a few months. And then if you decide you want more, let's do that. But
yeah, then you can just get another policy.
I would never want someone to think I'm trying to like penny and dime them. It's where you are. It's your policy. I'm here to serve you. And if I do a great job, here's something really interesting for anyone that does know about like life insurance. I've never made a cold call, none of that. I don't buy leads. It's all referral base from serving the people. And then they want to connect me with their friends and their family because I'm going to find them what they need where they're at.
Yeah, because I think like that's one of the biggest gaps in this is like just such a bad rap on like the trust factor of going into this. Because like, I mean, going back to Dave Ramsey, he talked about it in one of his videos as well, where it's just like, these people will go and they'll sign up all of their friends and family on this, and they'll sell their soul in this business, and until they can't deal with it anymore, and they'll quit, and they've already ruined all the relationships because there's. But then that's going back to like all the penalties and fees and all the stuff that he's talking about if people don't stay in that, I guess, insurance agreement. So it was interesting to just like hear that aspect. I'm like, okay, so how does everybody make money on this? And
so that was kind of going over
sense.
Mine.
That's
how I get paid, by serving the client. Let's see how the carrier gets paid, right? So similar to, we'll talk car insurance, right? Everyone's familiar with that.
Well, how does your company, like that's how you get paid? How does your company get money?
Okay, so when the carrier pays out, right?
Yeah.
They paid out in this example we gave, they paid out at 100%. Right.
So like a $600 policy, they paid out $600.
Yeah. So the agent is at a 50% commission. So that company would have got the other 50%.
Like PHP?
Yeah. So say it's a $100 a month policy. So it's $1,200 for the year. If my contract is at a 50%, I'll get half of that payout. PHP would get the other half.
So what is the insurance money? Where does the insurance get their money?
The insurance gets their money over time building it. They're in a long-term investment portfolio.
So
like
all their
bonds and stuff like that.
So really, they basically say, hey, you guys make the money on the insurance policy, and we make money on where we can invest it.
Yeah, because then the following years, right, these policies are going to be in 20, 30 lifelong policies. So we get residuals, which is great. It's usually like around 3%. So it's like the first year, it's like, hey, write good business, get paid. We got them for the next 20, 30, or the rest of their life. So we'll get a piece over that, but we're also investing.
Yeah.
So they have investment strategies like bonds and stuff like that. And so they're leveraging a lot of things there as well. And then when the market's going over the 9, right? And then you have people that are also leveraging policies, so they're paying back at a percentage. So they have plenty of strategies to make them money.
Yeah. Which I know we've talked about this in the past, but like banks and large, I don't know, credit unions and things like that will lend out your money and make money off the market with it.
Oh yeah.
But they don't have to have that in the bank. Whereas you educated me about insurance companies. Explain that.
Yeah. So are you referring to the fractional banking?
Well, like if a bank goes out of business,
oh yeah,
they don't have all that money sitting there.
No, definitely not.
But if an insurance company goes out of business, which they haven't for 100 years or so or longer,
never,
they can pay out everybody because it's required for them by law to have that sitting in cash.
Yeah, they have it. They have a reserve. Yeah. So what's fascinating about it is, so say you have $10,000 and you go put it in the bank. Most banks can use 100% of your money and then go leverage it. And then they can actually reuse those same dollars, I think like 8 or 9 times. I'm not telling you that's what it is. It might, go look it up. But they can continue to leverage it over and over again. So then that's why we see bank runs when the economy is in a fragile spot. People are like, I got to go get my money. The bank's going to fail, right? So then there's a bank rush, and then the money's not there because it's been loaned out. So the bank is using your money to make money, right? So I go put in 10 grand. They're going to say, thanks for trusting us with your money. We're going to grow this at 0.01%. We're going to take that 10 grand. The next guy that just walked in right after you wants a loan for 10 grand for a new car. We're going to loan it to him at a 20% APR. So we're going to make money with your money while it sits here not making you enough to outpass inflation. Mm-hmm. So there's that piece of it. We just believe that the client should be able to participate in that same strategy that's being leveraged. Now, how are the banks doing that with the money? Where are the banks putting the money, right? So this is pretty interesting. If you look up bank-owned life insurance called BOLI, there's countless banks that have like $30 billion in life insurance.
Yeah.
So they're taking the money, they're putting it in an index universal life insurance policy where it's going to grow at a 0 to 9. They're going to make 0 to 9 on the client's money. If they do need it, they'll take a loan and they can give it back.
So here's a question. If you're can you bank to other people that need your money?
You can create your own banks.
So like if a family member is like, hey, I need to have a car loan. It's $50,000. Can you be like, okay, I bank on them paying me back that money and
start family banking? Yeah, you start a family trust and you set parameters for how you can do it. That's literally how. If you want to be driving down the street and see Forrest Dorman, why am I slipping up on your name?
Come on now. It's okay. Most people have no idea how to pronounce my last name.
Dorman. Yeah.
Like opening the door.
I'm working on my spelling and reading and writing.
A lot of people
stuff.
go Dorham.
I almost did that. I was like,
what? I'm like, what is a Dorham?
Because I'm trying to remember the H when I'm writing it in my mind.
It's silent. H is silent.
So then I'm putting it.
Yeah.
As I'm speaking it. Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah. So Dorman Bank, right? It's you can leverage these strategies and create that for yourself. It can be family banking. You can have people, you can say, hey, I want this percentage back, or I want this part of the business. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, it is kind of cool because then it's like, okay, me right now having young kids, if I start this policy or a couple policies, right, for myself and for them, then when they want to go buy their first house, they don't have to go to a bank to buy the first house. They can come to me to buy their first house.
Or they can go to their own policy.
Or they can go to their own policy, borrow it right out. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
That's something really cool. I would say if anyone asks you about kids' IULs, let me know. I'm going to send you a video. It's like a 2-minute video. You can just send it to them. It's so cool. Yeah. Like, I wish I had an IUL when I was, a couple years old. You can insure a child at 2 weeks old, right? And what might cost X amount for an adult, you think about how many years we have till retirement.
Yeah.
For me, I have 35 years till retirement age, whatever that is, right? According to society, it's about 65 years old.
You and I are already retired. What are you talking about? We get to do what we love for life.
Yeah, we chillin'.
But we still need to make the money roll in, but
absolutely.
We're doing what we love.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, with kids, I mean, if you put $50 in a young child's policy or $100 in a young child's policy, they'll have multiple six figures for retirement guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
now here's two questions. Going back to the fees, right? If I, God forbid, another recession or like major issue happens in the country, I can't physically pay that policy anymore. What happens to the policy? So, obviously, that's like worst case scenario. You don't want that to happen. But what if I've got all these policies sitting here and I have to put money in there every month to keep them growing? What happens if I can't do that anymore?
Yeah, I mean, just like if you're paying car insurance and you stop paying your car insurance, it's going to eventually lapse. They're not going to just keep giving you free 6-7 figures worth of protection for no money.
But what happens to the money that's in there? Like, let's say it's been there for 15 years. I've already got over maturity on it.
Oh, you can get a surrender amount.
Okay,
yeah, it'd be a reduced percentage of what you've put in, but you can surrender.
Would it at least be like whatever you put in?
Not to the dollar if you're surrendering an account. Well, I guess that depends, right? So again, it depends on the carrier, the type of policy you have written, and how it's structured. So again, that'd be case by case. If you have, say it's been growing cash value for 10, 15 years, it's already going to have more than you put in because it's been growing.
Yeah.
Right. So if you do decide to pull it all, you're basically deleting the account. But if you have, there's different strategies, right? So there's some, you're not supposed to pull this for a certain time. They're still maturing. So if you have one that's set to mature at 10 years and you try pulling at 7, it's not matured. So you're not going to get every dollar back.
Yeah. And to go back to this, the reason why is because you're doing this because you're still paying the premium for the insurance, which is, this is one of the areas that I was getting mixed up is like, oh, well, if I'm putting X amount of dollars into the policy, I should have that growing every month. No, you're still getting life insurance as a benefit for that. So you're still paying for a policy that you would be paying anyways, and then they're taking the excess of that and investing it for you.
Yeah. So what we'll do is
which was one of my disconnects when I started learning about this, because I was like, okay, why does it have a maturity level? It should be matured right away. I kept forgetting that I'm putting money into a policy for life insurance. So I'm still paying them for the benefit of having a life insurance policy. Yep,
absolutely. So what we want to do is we want to maximize cash value, which will minimize your death benefit. But we still need it to be in the parameters of being a life insurance policy. So there will be a maximum amount you can put in before you're just obviously avoiding taxes, where don't hit the ceiling, but you can always get another policy and then fund it the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know there's going to be more to this than we can cover.
Yeah, this is already a lot. This already, it's a lot of information, but I'm an open book.
Yeah.
So
no, and that's kind of the thing too. Is like, I know when I reached out to you originally, I was when we talk to companies, we're like, okay, we'll build a website for them, and we're putting on their benefits, right? Competitive pay. You've got health insurance, dental, vision, 401k. And 401k tends to be like 401k is like Social Security. It's not going to be around 20 years, at least. Man, I don't think so. It's a mess to put money into anyway. And so for me personally, I was looking at this in a way. Okay, how can I give my people a policy that won't fail through the federal government, that will actually give them more money long term? That was the original. When you mentioned this to me, I was like, okay, I could invest in my people by building a policy for them. And then, like, they could also, instead of me matching 401k, like, I can match what they put in for a policy like this, and they could be millionaires, like, guaranteed when they retire.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, how can I do that for us? Well, maybe we incorporate that into part of our consulting business with our clients, where we go, hey, look, like, instead of putting that into a 401k, or maybe, dude, I don't care, keep the 401k, but add this as a new benefit. And those who want to also put extra money from their phone instead of 401k into this, then they can have the option to do so. And then there's no downgrade to the company, because they would either be matching a 401k policy anyway or an IUL. And if the employee wants to do the IUL because they think it's a smarter decision, they're not going out any other, they're not losing any money. They'd be putting it in a 401k anyway. So
I'd love to talk on that for a minute.
yeah, go for it.
So back when they introduced the 9-to-5 work week, they came out with pensions, right? Because they're basically saying you're going to work 9 to 5 for 30 years, and then we'll retire you with a pension plan where you'll get a monthly check you can live off of. When they did that, the life expectancy was about 62 to 65 years old.
Yeah, they didn't expect anybody to live long. I only have to pay them a couple of years.
Exactly. So people started living longer. And it used to be on the employer to cover retirement, which is why they created the pension. It was also to kind of be like I wouldn't have been thrilled about a 9-to-5 getting introduced, but you tell me that I'm hooked up on the back end, it softens the adjustment, right?
Yeah.
So people started doing that. Then people started living longer. So the funding for those pensions was failing, and it was being, the hot potato was left in the hands of the employer. So then they adjusted. They said, let's create a different plan that's on the employee, but we'll help them fund it so we can transition into that. So then they came out with the 401k, right? It also helped people start putting money back in the market after the Great Depression. So they're just like, just put a little bit. Let's recover this market with your money.
Yeah.
Right? And so people were doing that. We're now seeing 1 out of 3 are not retiring. And of the 2 that do retire, 1 is not staying retired, right? We're seeing, sadly, like little old ladies bagging groceries, Walmart greeters, like working at like coffee shops, like we know they're making maybe $15-20 an hour. And they're going to do that until they pass.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And so
they're really just lonely old ladies. No, I'm just kidding. They actually are required. A lot of them are stuck in a hard spot.
It's rough, man. And so that was all, like even the guy that created the 401k has said, this is not a retirement plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't ever a retirement plan. It was supposed to be you have a pension, and then you have your own funds to help you with your retirement, and then you have your investments. It's like three
categories of
stool seat.
Yeah.
It's your three parts of your stool. And so the pension got deleted. The 401k is subject to losses in the market. And then people right now average like 70% of Americans don't have $1,000 if there was something bad that happened. So like they're ending up leaning on the 401k, hoping that it'll be sufficient enough to retire, and it's not. Here's something interesting too. There's a max on a 401k. The max is, I want to give you accurate numbers. We can cut it for a sec.
Oh yeah, we don't need to cut it.
Max contribution of 401k. What's up, everybody?
We need like a Joe Rogan guy in here with a computer. Looking this stuff up for us now.
That'd be
in
cool.
the future.
It's not loading right now.
That's all right. There's a ceiling on 401k.
Give it to me. Okay.
Give it to me.
Let's see.
I've never liked my 401k.
It's not sexy.
Oh, Brian's got it.
What are you seeing? Limit increases to 23,000. Is that what they're saying? Annual, the limit is?
Annual limit's 23,000. That's it.
Yeah, I want to say it's like 6,500 a month or something.
That's really low. That's interesting.
So, well, it makes you ask, where are the rich people putting their money?
Yeah,
because
obviously you can't get a big enough return if you have that much money in obviously like a 401k or something like this. And a lot of people say real estate.
Again, it's in the market. It's great to have it as part of your portfolio. It's just not the answer. A lot of people want an end-all, be-all answer.
Yeah. Well, but also, like, if you're rich and you're going to, okay, what does it say? 401k limit increase to 23,000 for 2024. IRA limit rises to 7,000. That's really low.
Yeah. And then you add that all together, and then you multiply it by the average increase of the market, and it's not even a sexy retirement.
Well, and it's not even like a good yearly growth like that. Even if you're making 15% or something on that, that's not awesome. I mean, it's cool if you make a good year on a little bit of money, and it's like,
when you're going to pay tax, like think of your 401k paying taxes too. You're not paying them now, you're paying them later. So they want it that way so they get a bigger chunk later.
Yeah, which I've always lost ever since I had a 401k through my previous employers. I don't think I've ever made money. And I have it on a really risky platform. Like it's like I have a lot of risk, because I'm younger, going in there, but it just doesn't grow. I mean, and it's been in there for 10 years, and I haven't put a lot in there either. So obviously, I'm not going to see major growth.
It's your old 401k, so you're not even getting a match on it anymore.
No.
There's virtually no point in keeping that.
I know, and that's so like, and I've talked to you about this, is taking it basically like the random money that's sitting there, and just dropping it into one of these policies, which is a great point to bring up. Is like, if you have a 401k you don't want to keep, you can actually migrate that without penalty into this, correct?
Yeah. So if you're still with the employer and you're contributing to a 401k, I would have to see the structure.
Well, it's free money.
If you have an old 401k and there's nobody matching it, there's no point in keeping it there. You can roll that over into one of these strategies. So like an index annuity, you can roll it there and it'll continue to grow.
Yeah, that's cool. Mm-hmm. You still have to keep funding it, obviously.
You can do one and dones with annuities.
Oh, okay. So like if you had 40 grand in like a 401k or whatever, just drop it in there and you don't have to pay like a monthly.
Yeah, you can just leave it. You
can
do a one-time lump sum. Yeah. So
see, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Violet had a TSP, a thrift savings plan, which is basically a 401k for military members.
Yeah.
I think it had like 20 grand in it. So we rolled it into an annuity, and it's already projected to have multiple six figures, and we're not ever going to touch it again.
That's cool.
So
yeah, and you're not even paying into it each month.
No, 120K that we would have probably just never even looked at again, honestly, if we didn't get into this field, and then maybe been surprised one day with some money.
Yeah.
Now we're like, oh, it is definitely going to be a good chunk of retirement. So it brings a lot of peace of mind. Our son's retirement's already structured and set. Like our son will already retire with multiple seven figures.
Yep.
And it's just done. So that brings a lot of peace of mind when my son maybe is throwing a fit for a toy in the store, and I think of like parents that might be in and out of financial struggle that are like, oh, sometimes it can get warped around and you're like, am I a bad parent? I'm not providing. Get your kid an insurance policy that's going to set up their retirement. You'll have a lot more composure. You'll be a lot more rooted in your decisions when you speak financially about your child because you just already blessed them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of just, it's insurance. It's just easy, but we have a lot of clients that are developers or like design build contractors, right? So they are the architecture, engineer, developer, construction company. Like they're vertically integrated into the business where they buy the plot of land, they develop the plot of land, they either sell it or lease it back to the person, right? So they're doing the whole process. Whereas typically you'd have like a developer that goes and gets a bank loan from a bank or a construction loan from a bank to build a property, and then develop it, and then they get whatever money they make on that property by getting that bank loan. So if you could have like a major company like that incorporate a policy like this, then they could just go straight back to themselves, and it doesn't matter how. It could be massive amounts, right? You sell, $150 million property.
We've done $20 million policy.
Yeah.
So,
how big can you go with these things?
It's just one of those things. We have to basically see the client if they're actually insurable to that rate. Like, if there has to be an agreement between the carrier and the insured, right? So, if you have someone worth a few $100 million that want to come get insured for multiple seven figures, 8 figures, it's just a meeting. It's a meeting, some paperwork, conversation. What do you wish to do with it? And it's just a decision between the two parties.
If there was a big developer like that wanted to start loaning themselves out money on each project, and let's say on average their projects are $50 to $150 million, right, to build, like all said and done, with engineering, with architecture, with building. Let's just as an example say a project is $50 million to build, and they sell it for $70 or $80 million. I don't know, whatever. If they put even 10% of that profit into an account, they could probably loan back another $50 million to themselves pretty soon to start another.
It just depends on how fast it's growing, right?
Yeah,
like you're not going to take a loan for higher than what's been put in.
Yeah.
But it's going to be growing. So if you just did a project and you're like, okay, I heard about this strategy. I'm curious about it. I want to run some numbers, right? I want to do this, this, and this. Like I worked with a guy that was he bought a few homes. He was building the homes. It was going to be like a $8 million investment.
Yeah.
And so we were having a conversation, and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to do it again. So it's like, great, let's strategize it. It doesn't always have to be a here and now thing. It can be in 1 year, I'm going to do it. Okay,
Yeah.
let's open it and get it structured to receive those funds. And then we can raise your ceiling this way, this way, this way. It gets pretty technical. This is kind of when
this is broad.
This gets fun when we get to get on an actual computer screen and we log into the carrier website and I show you kind of like the back office, how it works. And then we pick it apart together, which is great. But yeah, if they put in, say, 10
million.
Yeah, they put in 10 million. If they want to put in 10 million every year for a couple years and then go pull 30, 40 million, they can, because they've put enough in to where they can unlock it sooner.
Yeah.
So
and then you just pay yourself back to yourself.
Yeah, if you're going to go invest 50 and then flip it for 20 mil profit in a couple years anyway, yeah, take the loan from yourself and then put it back in, and it'll be pretty attractive numbers in there.
Yeah, that's cool. I always just think of the strategies that large companies and businesses can make with this, because it's like, I think about these strategies for myself, but then when you grow it on a massive level in business, like, I don't know, once you start working it up on paper, it starts looking attractive, especially if you're already going to loan the money out. Most companies have lots of debt through banks, right? And it's like, okay, how can you utilize the debt from yourself instead? Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, they're using your debt anyway.
Yeah, might as well
just leverage their playbook.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, to recap, commission goes to the marketing company and the agent, and then the insurance company gets money off of the increase, anything over 9% or whatever the policy is. I'm sure there's policies out there that have smaller ceilings than 9%, right?
Yeah, there are.
So whatever the contract says, I guess, of, okay, hey, we'll give you X amount year over year, guaranteed not to drop below X or whatever. So
we have some that are like guaranteed 2%, non-guaranteed like 4.5. So there's different parameters you can work with.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I guess you just got to be smart in choosing the carrier and talking to the right person.
That's what's cool about representing so many. And it's interesting, too, because we have some people represent one insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And so when their client comes in and they only have one menu for this kind of food, but they want a different kind of food, are you going to tell them, oh, we have this, it's very similar, I think you'll really enjoy it? Or are you going to say, we don't have that here, actually, you should probably take your business elsewhere?
Yeah.
They're not, most are going to just, you go to Walmart for a certain thing, maybe Target has a better option. Walmart's going to sell you what they have that's the most like it. So it's cool when I'm not limited to that, because if they need this, I say, oh, I have these options for you. Is this kind of what you're thinking you need?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let me take a deep dive into a different topic other than business and individuals using this policy. The world sucks right now. We've got so many conflicts: Israel, Ukraine, Russia. The Middle East is still popping off. We've got, right here in the southern border in Texas and in California and Arizona, which is already a war, right? We've got China and Taiwan. We have basically the entire world right now that's in just like chaos, right? I always say that, like, we've been in war since before 2000. Like, we've been in a world war just because it's
money and power, man.
Money and power and greed is just dominated. And it doesn't look great for our future, right? So, like, there's a lot of war happening. There's a lot of death happening. There's a lot of chaos around the world. Hopefully God brings his kingdom back soon. But with that, going into this, what would you say to, like, folks that are looking at this and saying, well, this is too long-term for me? Like, there's so much going on. Like, what if we get drafted? What if we, get invaded? What if we have, another massive economic crisis? Like, will these even be useful long-term?
Cool. The first thing that kind of came to mind is don't major in the minor, right? Like, you don't have control of what you don't even know yet. So all I know is that it's my responsibility to take steps to protect my family, and I plan on, and my family is not my my son. It doesn't stop at my son or my grandbabies. It's my bloodline. And I think that's something we've kind of lost over the last
For sure.
few decades, centuries maybe, is like, it's your lineage.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I'm not gonna choose to not make a smart financial decision for the future of my lineage because I think we might have trouble in the future.
Yeah.
Like, we're having trouble now.
Well, and that's the thing too, right?
So-
Is like, even if trouble does come and everything gets deleted, let's just say everything goes back to Stone Age, it would have done that either
Got
way.
bigger problems than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We'll
So-
be trading.
That's right. And it would have happened whether you had 2 cents in your account or $200 million in your account, right?
Yep.
It's either way, it's gone.
Mhm.
So like I always say, money's fake. Like it's just there.
Monopoly money.
It's monopoly money. But yeah, that's a perfect answer. You know, it's like, don't worry about it. You know, if it does happen, it happens. What are you going to do about it anyway?
Imagine you get to retirement age, you could have created essentially your own pension and live the good life and have money coming in monthly for the rest of your life tax-free, and you just didn't because you thought you'd be in a crappier spot by now.
Yeah.
So you just created the crappy spot.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, I've heard a lot of people go like, why even get married? Why even have kids? Because the world is going to end anyway. And I'm like,
That's wild.
but imagine it doesn't. And then you're like on your deathbed, like, I should have had a family. I should have started a lineage. I should have, made a legacy. It's just weird to, dude, if everyone gets wiped out tomorrow, like, okay, like that's the end of it, regardless how much you had in your bank or not.
Yeah.
Which is funny. And I don't know. I think like you can utilize money to have a lot of happiness in your life. People say, money doesn't buy happiness, but it surely buys peace of mind. It surely buys more time with your family. It sure buys more experiences. And like in reality, like the nice car sitting in the driveway, the beautiful house or multiple houses, vacation properties, those really don't matter, but it's like the time spent at those things.
Yeah.
With your family or the ones that you love or the experiences that you've made that like do matter. And you can only get there by money. And how, we talk about this on a daily basis, but like how many people can you help with more money, right? Like that's the only reason why we are in business. Like we're not in business to get rich ourselves. We are in business to get rich for other people.
Yeah.
Like we want to be able to take.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah. What are you going to do with the money? Like I want to take all of my money and devote it to people that are in need, like that. I don't know. That's just been a passion forever. Like I'm a very simple man. I could have a 1-room log cabin out in the middle of nowhere and never talk to anybody ever. And I could be completely content. And some people are like, oh, I can't do that. I need a nice house and a nice car. And I need to be around a lot of people. I need to go, party at nightclubs, whatever it is. I'm a simple man. So it's like, okay, how can I make money, for others?
Yeah. Purpose and impact.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's interesting.
I think it's cool that you brought up, it's not about, like, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it was funny. We were talking with Matt the other day, and Matt has, I know you've heard some of Matt's background, but he often says, I was broke, busted, disgusted, right? He was a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
Yeah.
But young Marine.
He's got the crayons in his suit jacket pocket.
Yes, and I have extras also if he gets hungry. But no, he was kind of making, it's so cool how he builds his business because he's always working with the newest person to join, which is just so cool. I know that I got started in the industry. He invited me out to cigars the second time I ever went to the office. Nice. And I was like, what a leader, right? Like, what a cool guy. And it just shows like it's not about the money for him because I hadn't done anything relating to finance at all.
Yeah.
He just is a good guy. But he was doing a training the other day, and it's so cool. He makes $2 million annual just from this business, not including some other investments, and he's always there pouring into us. And so he was running a training, and sometimes it's easy. He was talking about, hey, it's easy to compare my page 30 to your page, 2 or 3, right? But Sheena and I had, Sheena is his wife. They run the business together.
Yeah.
Sheena and I have had our clarifying conversations, and money doesn't buy happiness, but when you're having a hard conversation or a disagreement, and you can say, you know what? Let's go get a nice steak dinner and continue this conversation. Let's go get sushi.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's take our son to the water park right now. I'm gonna make some adjustments to the schedule. We haven't been having quality time. We're going out to a cabin in the woods. We're gonna work this out. It doesn't buy happiness. It gives you the option to make adjustments to your current situation.
Yeah.
It is a tool. And I oftentimes think of like the traveler in the Bible, right? Like he was passed by a couple people, a man well dressed. He was passed by a couple people, and then there's someone walking by with his donkey and helps him out, puts him up in the inn, gets him clothes, food, puts him in the inn, and it doesn't highlight money in that, but the gentleman had to have that tool to serve that man that was in need. So oftentimes there's this negative with money, and it keeps people from ever acquiring it because they tie it to selfishness and greed.
Yeah.
Well, who are you spending your time watching that has money? Are you idolizing celebrities? Are you idolizing who are you giving that to, where you judge their character, but then you spend your time giving them your attention? And
yeah, I think a lot of people revert back to like, oh, most people that have money have used it in the wrong way, or what else, whatever. And it's like they associate basically anybody that has money with somebody of like bad character, right? And sure, there's probably an aspect of, okay, money can change a little bit of your personality, but this goes back to keeping with the basics, right? God, family, work.
mm-hmm.
If you have God and you have family set, like money shouldn't be an option, like a key factor in like your moral decisions, right?
Yeah.
So that's super important. Well, I think we've covered a ton of information, and kind of the goal with the podcast was to give some insight to people on a personal aspect of like, hey, where else can I put my money with that's not just like, a bank or, in some investments that have a lot of risk. And then also just talk about some of the nuances with this, because everybody that researches IUL or this strategy, there's a lot of bad information out there, and there's a lot of positive information out there too. They just fight. So it's really tough to...
Can I add something on that really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people, that's why it's so important to develop a relationship with your agent, understand like who they really are, because just like there's bad car salesmen, bad contractors, bad everything, like
there's bad agents.
Someone can mislead you.
Yeah.
That happens, right? So understand who you are trusting with this. And if you don't know who to trust with this, go to your most credible person and maybe consult with them.
And again, this isn't for like everyone, and you guys don't push everyone on this anyway. So
life insurance is for everybody. Everybody should. But yeah, as far as these other strategies, that is not our primary focus. I love doing it because it gets my gears turning. I love talking business. I love talking about the vision of a business owner and sharing perspective. So I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it. But the purpose and the mission is insuring people. We had Master P as a guest at one of our events. It was so cool to have him there because we're like, what is Master P doing at a life insurance event?
Yeah.
And he shared his story. On the streets, no one messed with the insurance man. He'd show up in a Mercedes and he'd go door to door and he'd have a bag of cash because that was the old school way of doing it. No one ever hurt him because if something happened to one of their family members that had life insurance, he was coming to bless the family with money to help support them. Master P ended by saying we could change the streets in one generation if we got everyone life insurance, because they would eventually pass, and then it would allow money to the streets, and everyone can upgrade their life, their standard of living.
Yeah,
so that is where the mission is. It's ensuring the woman that is having trouble, figuring out her next check and needs to have that backup plan. Yeah. But yeah, we love talking about the attractive stuff as well.
Well, and yeah, I mean, when you look at the blue collar world, there's a lot of people that are in hard times too. They might not be making like a killing in the trades. A lot of them get to the point where they are making a killing in the trades. That's why it's so attractive to most. But yeah, there's a lot of information that we covered there, and I know there's a lot more to it that we could dive into. But that we'll have to save that for another time since we're running up on time. But
cool.
But yeah, I think that was a ton of awesome information. Thanks for diving into your background and then like where you are now. And then obviously you can reach out to us if you're listening, or reach out to Tyler if you want more information, if this sounds like anything that you want to learn more about, even if you say no to it eventually, right? Like if you need life insurance at the bare minimum, or if you want to put your money in other areas that could benefit like you or even a company. If you want to look at strategies like that, give us a shout, give Tyler a shout. Where can they find you?
Instagram, Tactics and Finance, through your page.
Yep.
As well. LinkedIn, Tyler Klekamp, Facebook. I'm around. You can find me.
Around. Yeah.
Tyler Klekamp.
If you can't find them, reach out to me. I'll get you in contact.
Forrest has got your back.
Yeah.
We hang out. So.
All the time. Yeah. So, well, we've got a lot of cool, unique opportunities, side projects that you and I are going to dive into over the next years to come. Mm-hmm. So excited about that, and excited to keep striving, whether it's an Eagle Eye or Checkmate or any of the other businesses that we start. We've already got a whole list of them. So, guys, thanks for listening. I will end it there. And
thank you for having me on, brother.
Thanks,
Appreciate
bro. Appreciate you. Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Podcast. Catch us on the next one.